Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, wherever you happen to be, and welcome to another episode of Living World of Darkness, Rage Across New York. In tonight's scene, we will set our sights on the umbral reflection of the northern woods, where a certain gigantic someone has been left to her own devices, which we shall see as we zoom in, is, sleeping. Yeah, sleeping. The, uh, the massive cub has been led to an appropriately massive den, only so long abandoned by its previous tenant, and has, with the assistance of one unicorn spoon, nested in and honestly shown no interest in wandering elsewhere. No, this monolithic cub has settled in on a bed of branches and grass and whatnot within the den and been content to lay there, perhaps for the first time in a very long time, getting sleep on her own terms.
Olaf stalks through the Umbra, looking. He knows roughly where to look thanks to his packmates, but he can never be sure if the cub is directly there or what. So he's keeping an eye open while heading in the direction of the den. Eventually, however, he gets there.
And just for posterity, I'm gonna roll to see if she hears you coming up, because that seems like a good idea. Do, do, do. Just checking that. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One extra die for wolf sight. -2 difficulty for lupus. Thank God, because that was a terrible roll. But that's still only 2. So, like as not, as Olaf comes upon the den, the great scarred beastie within is only just starting to stir and realize that something has changed.
Olaf waits for her to wake up.
And she'll do so. She'll she'll stir, and once it's begun, there's a brief, that brief point where she's been slightly startled, and there's a couple little motions to cue that she's about to wake, and then very abruptly she'll be on her feet, nose pitched to the door of the door to the entrance of the den. Perhaps a little bit bristled, a little bit puffed, something of a thoughtless little threat display, not an aggressive one, but a defensive one, as she is in what she has decided is hers.
Which is funny because the way Olaf is walking around as he comes upon this area, he is acting like all of this is his. His ears are straight. His tail is almost high, kind of like low high, if that makes any sense.
I accept this decision.
He is walking as though he is king shit of this area.
King shit, you say?
Yes.
Well, she will, especially if he hasn't gone so far as to nose into the den itself, she will eventually shake herself a bit and poke her head through the entrance, take a careful wuff with only her nose protruding, and then finally begin the laborious process of pulling her outright monolithic body out of this den and looking about in search of whomever's disturbing the local greenery, as it were.
Olaf looks at her, and in spite of her massive size, she can already tell, like, that he is looking at her as though it makes not a whit of difference. She might have, in times in her past, intimidated her opponents in the pit by being fucking huge. In this case, it's strange. He is like half her size, but he is acting as though he is as big or bigger.
Being huge certainly helped. The scars that are mostly only visible around her paws, around her lower legs, around her face, places where the fur is thinner. They also don't hurt at all, at least when it comes to these people, these wolves, whatever they are. But in this case, she'll bring herself out, stand herself properly upright, and probably for several long moments merely watch Olaf as he walks in like he is, in fact, what is it, king shit? That was pretty
Yep,
awesome. King shit of this place.
king of the poops.
King of the poops. And it takes some consideration, it takes some weighing, but recalling only so distant a past, aka earlier this very day, she will decide not to respond with aggression so much as respond with alertness. Her tail pops up just a little bit, not to equal height of his, but it does pop up. It gives a flick or two in interest. Her ears have flicked forward. She's kind of stretched herself, nose towards him, but has not broached any sort of personal space because she doesn't want to be snapped at.
Within a few moments of this, Olaf is broaching her personal space.
And what is Olaf doing in her personal space?
Um, he's like wolf butting the side of her like head, throat, neck area.
She seems, if anything, a bit puzzled, and when he comes up to anything close to alongside her, will kind of stretch her head over and down in an attempt to kind of waffle him and catch his scent properly. But she seems to be taken off center by the butting. But she's not being hurt, and he's not using his teeth, so clearly this is harmless.
Eventually, he even kind of pops up, and it is apparent that although he is not mauling the shit out of her, he is trying to bowl her over. It's the weirdest thing she's ever seen.
It is quite weird. And as a result, at least initially, she's probably going to kind of not dance per se, but kind of hop back a bit. Not in an attempt to gain ground so that she can make an aggressive display, not to do anything else untowards. It's just she earnestly seems confused by the behavior and doesn't like it and is trying to give herself a little space just because she doesn't understand what the goal of this is.
The repeat that she gets
scuffling.
is whatever ground she gives, he takes as though, no, this is mine too. And he keeps kind of just like, he has yet to bare his teeth or do anything too hyper aggressive, but if she's going to keep displaying submissive behaviors, he's going to keep acting like he is in charge, and therefore shove, shove, push, Russell.
It takes her a moment, and there's probably at least a brief period where her tail flicks up higher and she considers a match off of sorts. Again, not quite going so far as to be seen as aggressive, but perhaps a little bit of a challenge.
So she's challenging him.
Essentially, she's watching him. Her tail flicks up. She gets a little bolder and holds her ground during the next bit of shoving just to see what happens.
So we could roll for this.
No, play it out. Narrate it.
Okay. Any staunchness of resistance, basically what amounts to an outright challenge to his dominance, is answered with tackle time.
Tackle time can be real. I say I don't want to bother involving dice, but she's very hard to get off her feet.
Okay. I mean, she did initiate a challenge. It now must be answered.
Very well. Go ahead and roll it just because I can't think of another good way to roleplay it out without it being frustrating.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the stats for tackling. I'm a bad player.
Fuck it. Let me pull my little combat doc. Loop.
I need a copy of that one
Tackle.
day.
It's up for everybody. Tackle is a dex brawl.
Okay.
All you need is one success to succeed in the tackle, and then you roll and I roll to see if we stay upright.
Okay. Oh, this is a pretty good dice pool. Is there a higher diff?
It is diff 7.
Okay.
My bad.
I know these sixes are just here fucking taunting me.
They are.
Still 3
that's
successes.
fucked up. That last one looks like a 6-2. I'm just saying.
Oh no, I screwed up. Sorry. Okay, 2 successes.
Well, he tackles her, and then the roll you make is we both make Dex Athletics. It's difficulty 6 for you, and then a difficulty 6 plus your successes, so 8 for me. Just to keep on your feet.
He's good. Very good at keeping on his feet. How about you?
I am checking real fast to see whether this merit applies, and it seems to, so it'll be diff 6 for me as well. But I do stay on my feet. So you do tackle her, like you full on tackle her. And I'm going to say that, especially because she wasn't quite sure what to expect, she'll stumble back a couple steps and probably look perplexed or even a little upset by what could be construed as an attack.
Yeah.
But she doesn't fall over.
I don't know what to do now.
She'll begin to display, like the tail drops. In fact, the tail curls slightly.
Shit. How high is your charisma intimidate? Actually, I'm trying to decide whether or not a stare down's worth it.
She's the attempt alone is enough that she's no longer looking directly at him. The tail's dropping. All in all, she seems to be avoiding straight up conflict at this point.
All right.
She's essentially backing down. She hasn't bared throat in a recognizable way, but she's backing down.
Okay, so she's already thrown the contest before it began, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, pretty much. You do the tackle, you run flat into her, you bowl her for a couple steps, and she doesn't fall over, but she seems confused and disheartened by the whole thing, and just kind of drops the tail, ducks her head.
Okay. If you are showing submissive behavior,
yes,
in the wake of this aggression, what Olaf does is he kind of comes alongside her again, but he's looking at her as though he is expecting something.
God, her upbringing. She, if anything, as he comes nearer, kind of cows herself down and has to pretty much go belly to the ground to do it, but will lap at his muzzle and try to get a woof of him. She's not bearing throat per se, but she's doing puppy behaviors.
Olaf accepts this. His tail lowers to a normal level instead of an upright I am Lord of all I see level. And he nibbles something out from over one of her brows. It's probably a twig or something.
No, probably. That or one of the clots of blood that didn't get washed out while they were
Yep.
bouncing around in the lake.
He starts grooming her.
She seems to be comforted by this and mellows out pretty well and just kind of slacks there and receives the grooming happily.
Yeah, she might have distant memories of this, but it's almost as though he's acting maternal.
Exactly why she's very abruptly calming down. This isn't something she's had access to since getting pitched in a cage. So this is a fond memory and a very comforting memory. So yeah, you have giant docile mega puppy.
I am Denfather, in charge of you.
She twitches an ear as he begins to speak, but doesn't necessarily fight it. She stays right where she is, and if anything, will again idly lap at whatever is closest, his muzzle or his leg or whatever.
What are you called?
She'll toss a glance up his way and cant slightly her head.
Uh, thing people say, thing others say when they want you listen.
She begins to show some little telltale signs of distress. Maybe it's the slightly more frantic waggle of her tail, her ear slicking back. But she doesn't seem to have an answer.
Mm. Would not matter. Whatever humans call you, that not your name.
Some of the signs of distress fade.
You will have new name. What to call you? And he seems to ponder over this.
While he's pondering, she seems to have realized that the ground is lovely and has pitched onto her side and finally started to just kind of roll and indulge in it. It's the umbral ground, so it's definitely richer. He'll also note, especially seeing as they are in the umbral scape, that the ground seems to almost rise up to meet her whenever she moves. There's probably little telltale signs of spirit heritage. Her paws probably take up the semblance of whatever earth she's standing on, something like that. It's not as strong as some spirit heritage she's seen, but it's definitely enough to be notable. And she does smell significantly of upturned earth, probably.
He examines this for a short amount of time. Interesting. I think I will call you suitable name. From here until you have official deed name, you'll be Stoneclaw.
She'll loll her tongue briefly and go ahead and roll herself back up. Now covered in umbral dirt. Yeah, legit.
When you have tribe, they will give you a new name. For now, you are Stoneclaw.
And so it shall be. Dun dun dun. She seems to be perfectly alright with this, and goes again into a bout of, like, obnoxious licking of the muzzle.
And in a completely hypocritical display of affection in comparison with how he treats Hamid cubs, Olaf kind of nuzzles her in a parental fashion.
She becomes even more at ease, and finally looks to him with her ears set into not an assertive posture, but definitely a listening posture. They've candid in just such a way as to pick up his voice readily.
Okay. This is not good place for den. We'll get you new den.
They flick black slightly, but with the promise of a new den, she's not going to complain. She, if anything, goes ahead and lurches up under her giant paws and gives herself a quick shake to send a bunch of dust and dirt into the air around her.
What Olaf does is he leads her out of the North Woods through the Sept and to not quite the cub cabins, though they do walk through there. She gets to see like umbral reflections of cabins and stuff.
She's familiar with these, at least in passing, and pays them zero notice, actually.
Eventually, however, where they come to is a place that's near it. Like it's respectably near it, but it's not quite it. Still within the warded areas from where like she doesn't know what they are, but she can likely see the wards. And that is where Olaf finds something suitably reflective. There's umber water and stuff.
Yep. They go over, if nothing else, to one of the ponds nearby. There are ponds in the area veiled for the cub cabins.
He nods towards it. You know how?
She paces up far enough to put her forepaws in the water and stands there until the ripples clear from her disturbing it with her paws, and let's see how well she does her thing. Because this is like the second time she's doing it. It's not hard. It's only difficulty 3. I'm a lupus baby. Don't worry.
My heart fluttered slightly in several ways.
Nope. And she slips across very rapidly, in fact. And just stands there waiting for him with her paws in the water like a dope.
That's funny. Okay. So what ends up happening is Olaf follows, and then it's a little different in the Tellurian because the dens that have been constructed thus far don't have umbral reflections, at least not yet.
She's familiar with these dens. She went and investigated them and stuck her head into all but Snowpaws because Snowpaws is marked properly. The others, she stuck her head in, but that's about all of her that would fit into them, so she became very discouraged. So she trots over there with an air of, I know exactly what this is.
At which point, Olaf kind of he picks out a space that's a respectable distance away and begins digging, motioning for her to come and dig with him.
She watches for several moments and seems kind of perplexed by the process initially. And she'll finally amble in, and with her massive paws, will start shoveling dirt. Hell, all things considered, it may seem easier for her.
Yeah, between Olaf actually knowing what he's doing and Stoneclaw just being strong as a truck,
Yes.
I imagine that after some time they will have constructed a proper den for a guru of her considerable size.
It probably takes a good minute, but she seems all but tireless. And yeah, she goes at it with a bit of guidance to get something that is right and isn't just a hole.
Yeah.
She'll eventually be able to descend into this den and turn herself about. And when she finally pops back out, looks delighted. She proceeds to, in a weird, very, probably the only non-wolfish thing she's done so far, is she'll hop out, cast about for a second, and finally go plunging into one of the areas where there's a little more trees and start nabbing up not just like small broken branches, but like large, large branches. And we'll probably drag this thing back to the den where she'll start biting viciously to snap off the bits that have the leaves, because those are the good bits, and just kind of nosing them into the mouth of the den. Because this is clearly what we do.
Olaf just kind of watches, like, he doesn't see any leafy bits that would be, like, really bad. So if that's what the cub wants to do, it's her den.
Yep. She will eventually have taken this full fallen branch and rendered it into little more than a pile of sticks, and proceed to go comically about the process of nosing, very carefully going through the process of nosing all of the bits of leaves, all of the little bundles into the mouth of the den, into the den entirely, and finally up against the back bit of the den, so that she has kind of a padded area, which she seems to be very proud of, if her body language is anything to go by. And then pops back out.
Finally, after all of this frolicking and hilarity, Olaf looks at her. I teach you how to be guru.
Head tilt.
You will learn. You will learn.
She'll wolf out a long sigh. And she'll finally, again, she'll do the whole process of creeping up to Olaf, essentially on her belly by the time she gets to him, lapping at his muzzle, and then finally say, food. After all, it was a lot of digging.
Food, huh?
Food.
For now, some food. Tomorrow, big food.
Head tilt.
We hunt deer.
What is tomorrow?
Next sun up.
She casts a glance up at the sky, almost demandingly. It doesn't work.
Is Mother Luna's time now.
She goes back to insistently lapping at his muzzle, because this is how you get food.
Eventually, Olaf, he doesn't like swat her, but he just kind of gently paws her off, the way that some dominant wolves will. And it's like, come on.
As she topples onto her side, because clearly this was the most vicious of shoves.
Yeah, I just kind of like very slow paws her onto the ground and just kind of like half lays on her.
She will take advantage of this point to, again, thoroughly kind of waffle whatever she can reach of him, snuffing him, trying to catch his scent, catching the scent of people he's interacted with.
Of which there are many.
Probably picking up similar scents to what she found on Lucas, if only because they share a pack.
Yep.
And goodness knows, with all the cubs, how many scents she's picking up. But she will be entertained by this for a surprisingly long time as she snuffles around and catches someone's scent and like buries her nose in his fur, trying to catch it entirely so that she recognizes this scent later.
Um, Eventually he gets up and he goes off, not for very long, and he looks at her and says, "Stay here." And when he comes back, hanging in his mouth is a shit ton of bacon.
She definitely accepts all bacon offerings. And unless she is
He eats
scolded
first.
back. Yeah, he'll have to like scold her back because she
will.
will initially make the attempt.
He will scold her back. But after he has had his fill, he backs away. It is obvious now that the bacon is hers to take.
Throughout whatever short period of waiting she has to endure, she is obviously, as I described it before, if you've ever been to a friend's house where they had a dog that you know was fed off of plates and knew that it was going to get some and would just stand there and wait and edge up and you'd swear they're going to take something off your plate, that's essentially what her behavior is around food. She knows she's not supposed to take his food, but she wants it. So she will get a little closer, make hopeful faces until he backs off and lets her have it. And then it's gone.
This entire time he's been examining her somewhat. We'll have to teach you many things.
Nom, snorf chomp. She eats as if she expects the food to disappear at any given second. She inhales it.
Yes, teach you many things. For now you rest. Tomorrow I start teaching you.
Tomorrow food?
Tomorrow teaching, then food.
Her ears pitch a couple times, swivel as she processes this. Decides that while it is not optimal, it's deal withable. And just kind of slumps herself down. She has had bacons. All is well.
For the moment, actually, it seems like Olaf is content to be where he is. There are times where Stoneclaw will catch him looking in the direction of the cabins. But at this point in time, he's just hanging out with her.
Well, then, at least for the moment, she will probably. It's a tentative process. She's shown some comfort, but her sidling up to lounge next to him is a kind of tentative process of, are you going to bite me? Oh, cool, I can get closer. Are you going to bite me? Ah, sweet, I can get closer. Are you going to bite me? Yay, I get to lay next to you.
Olaf is in that kind of weird laying position that four-legged animals can have, where yes, he is laying down, but his head is comfortably upright. I mean, something that would be like very foreign to us bipedal folk.
That is just fine with her. She will eventually go ahead and be flopped down to where she's either like back to side or back to back with him. And seem very pleased that she can make this much contact.
Yeah, at the moment, I would say that Olaf is content to watch over her for the time being. Something about her behavior has struck him in a certain way where it is obvious this has been considered necessary.
And with that, shall we call this scene and then see about another?
Sure.
Very well. Then in that case, we will for now say with these two wolves, one far higher ranking and one far outmassing, and say thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching, and we will see you next time, which will be very soon in Living World of Darkness, Rage Across New York.